Welcome, everybody. This is the November 15th meeting of Michigan Interfaith Power and Light. Sorry, it's been a very long day. We are delighted to come together to talk about individual activities of green teams, both for the benefit of the new green team at Kehillat Israel in Lansing and also some of our out-of-town visitors. We'll start with brief introductions of who we are and where we're coming from. I'll share some stories about our house of worship. I'm with Hazlitt Community Church and some of the activities of our larger group, and then we'll be asking individuals who volunteered to share some slides. I do have some slides from you. Remind me when it's time to pull them up if you don't want to share them yourself. But I will enable screen sharing so people who've got their presentation on their own laptop, they can do that. So we'll start at my upper left screen, and Stan Kaplowitz, could you give us a shout out and your affiliation?
Kehillat Israel in Lansing.
Thank you very much. David Arnosti, Hazlitt Community Church in Hazlitt near Lansing. And John Schleicher.
Faith Lutheran in Okemos.
And I have William's iPad next. Yeah, and you're muted.
Hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Bill Nash. I'm from the People's Church in East Lansing.
Thank you, Bill. And we next have Ewan Todd.
Yes, Presbyterian Church of Okemos Green Team.
Thank you, Ewan. And Bill Murphy.
I'm representing All Saints Episcopal Church in East Lansing.
Thank you, Bill. Jim.
Jim Detchen with the Green Team at Edgewood United Church in East Lansing.
Ramona.
I'm from the Charlotte Congregational UCC Church.
Thank you. Randy.
I'm with the Green Team and Faith Lutheran in Okemos.
Thank you, Randy. Kathy.
Kathy Lovell from Unitarian Universalist Church of Greater Lansing in Lansing.
And Dale.
Dale Rumsas, University Lutheran in East Lansing.
Thank you, Dale. Jeff.
Jeff Arbor, Presbyterian Church of Okemos Green Team.
Thank you, Jeff. Kent.
Kent Workman, Presbyterian Church of Okemos.
Great to have you with us, Kent. Dan.
Dan Nowicki with Community of Christ, Michigan. We have our office and campus ministry center in East Lansing and a congregation on the south side of Lansing.
Thank you, Dan. Judy.
Judy Kindle, University Lutheran Earthkeeping Team.
Thank you, Judy. And Rebecca, we don't have your video, but we did get your audio. You can introduce, if there are two of you both.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Marquardt. I'm with Trinity Lutheran Church in Grand Rapids, and I may only be able to be with you for a short while. My boys are competing with internet. That's why I'm trying to save by not having my video. Thank you for inviting us here.
Good for you. Dave Weiner.
Yes, I'm David Weiner with Congregation Kehillat Israel in Lansing and also with Southside Community Coalition in Lansing.
Thank you, David. Mark.
Mark Lyon, People's Church Earth Stewardship Committee.
Great. And Jennifer.
Jennifer Gordon with Presbyterian Church of Okemos Green Team.
Thank you, Jennifer. And Heidi.
Edgewood UCC, East Lansing.
Thank you, Heidi. And Doug, who I just lost your video. I'm seeing your mail on the picture. Doug is muted. Doug is on our green team at Hazlitt Community Church. So thank you for joining us. Here is an overview of sharing that we hope to hear from tonight. These are people who I contacted and talked with before and have agreed and I didn't have time to figure out like what order are people going to present in, but remind me if I forget that I have slides from Tahsin Sardar at the Islamic Center, so I'm going to be speaking for two people. Okay, so let me just go back to the initial screen sharing here. So for the benefit of those who are new to us or just tuning in and figuring out what's going on, our capital area chapter is about 1.5 years old. That's how long we've been organized, more or less formally. And in addition to being on the green team at Hazlitt Church, I serve on the board at Michigan Interfaith Power and Light. Our executive director, shown here, is Leah Wisty, and our board president, Ray from the Upper Peninsula Episcopal Church. And we have a number of other board members from the Detroit area. And so this was at a recent retreat. My home house of worship is Hazlitt Community Church in Hazlitt. Our pastors, Betsy Aho and Aaron Heisler, lead our dynamic team. And the church has been around since, I think, 1956. We run a community food pantry out of the church, so we've been very much involved in community service. And since the green team stood up about 2016 or so, with the help of Michigan IPL input, actually, we've put a solar roof on the sanctuary that covers half of our electricity. We've worked with University Lutheran and Islamic Center. We have a native plants memorial garden and are very interested in developing that further. And I understand, in fact, that one of the new native plant garden areas is designed actually by Rebecca, who's joining us tonight, who's great friends with Sally Garrett, our green thumb and expert on native plants. We had independently met as a green team social action kind of group, and I can't remember how John Schleicher got in touch with us. He was the president of Michigan Interfaith, and he said, "You want to form a green team?" And he put us in connection with Jim Detchen at Edgewood, and we carried out our first solar project, which was the beginning of a great kind of interaction. This just shows our nascent activities as we got into solar and energy efficiency and working with IPL. We teamed up with University Lutheran and Islamic Center and helped out a local homeless shelter here in East Lansing, Haven House, with energy rehab. And maybe because of those idle hours in the basement on Zoom, or because we were just ready for it, the capital area chapter came to fruition just over 1 year ago, when a number of houses of worship whom we'd loosely been affiliated with said, "Let's do something together." And we got connected with a fantastic community organization called the Southside Community Coalition, which has existed in Lansing for 20 years. And our nascent chapter here in the Lansing area decided to support their efforts at community involvement, with the idea that bringing renewable energy to all parts of Lansing, including lower income households and areas, is something that we wanted to be part of. So we raised funds and put a 13 kilowatt electrical array on the roof, and that now provides essentially 100% of the Southside Community Coalition's electricity on a yearly basis. We had a wonderful ribbon cutting last April. The mayor came. He said he was delighted to support such a project, which didn't require the mayor's budget to put in any money. It was a very, very good start for that. And we've been working together to see how we can support the Southside Community Coalition to help stand up green teams in communities of color in Lansing, including putting in a grant to the Capital Area Community Foundation. One of the projects that our local chapter is working on is then working with Ingham County Land Bank that is building housing targeted at low-income families. And we learned of this through one of our members who works with the land bank, and he knew that they were planning some high efficiency housing that would be then sold to low income communities. And we decided that this would be a perfect opportunity to show how not only energy conservation, but also renewable energy could be benefiting all communities in Lansing. And that's an ongoing project. So this is sort of a whirlwind flavor of some of the activities that we've been involved in. I would say that the most important lifeblood of this organization has been the willingness of members to share expertise and ideas, and also a belief that we can get things done when we work together. And I think that that's a model that can be replicated across the state of Michigan and have a lot of impact beyond individual projects at individual houses of worship. Now I'd like to turn the table to our next presenter. And would Jim Detchen like to go next? And should I share your slide?
Sure, sure.
Okay, just a moment. Let me open that up. Okay. Wait a minute. Just a second. Here we go.
Okay, so I think many of you know Edgewood is United Church of Christ, as well as Hazlitt. It has historically been a very progressive church and has been very active in social justice issues and racial justice issues. And we started a green team in 2004, and we had a summer camp, Edgewood summer camp, and we began discussing, well, what are we not doing? What should we be doing? And I had a very strong interest in developing a green team, and as were a number of other people. So we have been going on now for, I guess 18 years or so. And let's give you a highlight of some of the things that we've done. Our biggest project was putting 70 solar panels on the roof of Edgewood. We were one of the first houses of worship in the area. Hazlitt was right there at just about the same time. And this, what was, I think, interesting about this was that we raised $70,000. We had almost 100% of the members of Edgewood put in money, from the littlest kid to the more wealthy members. And so there was really a tremendous buy-in. So we've had solar panels on the roof for some time. We also, in 2018, adopted an environmental justice covenant. And Edgewood has 3 main covenants that are core beliefs of the church, which is open and affirming, and is also, I think racial justice, I think, is one. But environmental justice covenant was passed unanimously in 2018. So there's it's a core part of what Edgewood does. More recently, we've been focusing on, for the last couple of years, having plant-based diets, trying to get more members of our church to eat plants through a variety of ways. At our kickoff luncheons the last couple of years, we've had a variety of plant-based food, making people more aware of the possibilities. We've distributed recipes and just done a lot on that area. In the last year, we've worked with other members of the Capital Area Chapter on tree planting campaigns. And so both in May and in November of this year, we did planting of seedlings. Altogether, probably more than 200, maybe 300 seedlings have been planted in Meridian Township preserves. And that was really intergenerational. We got people from, probably kids who were less than 10, all the way up to people who are well into their 80s. One of the things that we work together with Hazlitt Community Church is obtaining a grant from UCC to have an environmental justice intern at East Stuber. And that's just getting underway. And we're just working with her, trying to find some projects that we can jointly work on together. During COVID, when we couldn't get together, we worked a lot on outdoor activities, trying to get people could go outside. So we organized, we called it Edgewood Outdoors, but a lot of it was a focus on environmental issues outside, and some was just fun. So we went to the Tollgate wetlands in the area, the Grand Ledges, the Clearview Apple Orchard, and did biking and hiking and canoeing trips. But that was just to get people outside and build community and be talking a little bit about environmental programs. We have really worked on integrating the green team with other teams at the church. So in terms of buildings, our buildings and grounds team, we have put in energy efficient lighting throughout the church. We installed a bottle filling station. We've expanded recycling. We worked on cleanup campaigns and landscaping campaigns. Our members have also preached a variety of sermons. Edgewood has a sermon writing group to assist our pastor, and a number of the sermons have been on environmental issues. We've also worked closely with the children and the youth on a variety of things, everything from teaching them about the values of honeybees and pollinator gardens, recycling, composting, and other areas. When we first started, we did a lot of educational activities like showing movies, organized environmental fairs, did lectures, workshops, letter writing campaigns, petition campaigns. And that was a lot of just getting our congregation aware of many of these issues. And then our church has had mission trips for a number of years, and there's a strong environmental component of that. We have built in Nicaragua clean water filters, very inexpensive filters in rural areas. We've gone to the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation and worked on a variety of activities there, and also to neighborhoods in Detroit and also Flint to do a number of things. So more recently, and I think Heidi might talk more about this, but we have been discussing working much more with the racial justice team at Edgewood, which is a very strong team as well. We've been mostly, I think, in the discussion stage of things that we can do together. But that's a little background on the kinds of things we've done at Edgewood.
That's very comprehensive. Heidi, did you have anything you wanted to add to that right now? Okay, I think you did a wonderful overview, Jim. Really engaged. Ramona Keim from Charlotte, would you like to be our next presenter? And do you want to share or should I share?
Yeah, I can.
Great.
Okay. Hang on one second. Okay, so I have to say, as a performing musician, we don't make PowerPoint slides. So I asked David if he would, and he made this lovely picture of our church and our rainbow flag and stuff. This is not, I have to give David all the credit. We are an old church, 1851, been around for a long time, big historic building. UCC, progressive in a lot of ways, but not as active. And I'm the director of music. I'm an employee, and it used to drive me crazy to see people tossing their bulletins away and not recycling them. So I got a bin out for the recycling, and then I finally just decided I'm going to get people together, and we started a green team in May of 2019. And we used the IPL document. I think Leah had passed it on to all of us. Just went right through that and used that as a guide, creating our mission statement. And we were really starting with, I don't want to say the easy things, but the low-hanging fruit as far as starting our green team, getting bins for people to put the bulletins in, and how we can recycle some things at coffee hour. So we started that. The mug rack was for coffee hour too, because people would drink their coffee out of styrofoam and it was driving us crazy. So we made a big rack. People brought their own mugs and then they just always had their mug. They put their name on it. We also did a lot of educational things, environmental documentaries and discussions. The green info, got a lot of it from the Creation Justice Ministries, that we'd put little blurbs in the bulletins, little things for people to do, and then longer articles in our monthly newsletter. And we also had a big Earth Sunday service. It was one of our interims was with us, but it was all surrounding that whole service. Church service was surrounding that. And then we had David come down on one of our environmental documentaries, and he came down and did a presentation on solar. So we had just started to discuss it. Well, then when COVID hit in March of 2020, so we hadn't even been around a whole year yet, and things just kind of fell apart at first. But in the fall of 2021, our O&A team, our open and affirming team, kind of started going again. We also in the fall of 2019 became open and affirming. So, and they didn't do much during COVID, but then in the fall of 2021, they started going again, and they kind of morphed to become like a social justice group. And then in the spring of this year, they asked me to become the chair or the head of that team. And I said, well, if I'm going to do it, let's bring in the green team aspect of it. And so we changed the name to Social and Environmental Justice. So mostly right now we're doing a lot of the education part of it, but I'm really pushing to move towards advocacy, activism kind of thing. So we're still kind of sorting out how we're going to keep all that together, because we do have environmental issues, but social justice kinds of issues, and how we're going to balance all that. So that part's the very beginning stages, really. We don't have the longevity that Edgewood does and doing tons of things, but I have a small, probably about 10 people that are very, very active and very consistent. They seem to be the same people who were active in social justice stuff, who also were interested in the Green Team, which is one of the reasons we decided to put them together. And we're just, yeah, a lot of energy there, and we're just kind of sorting how we're gonna move forward. So
wonderful. Thank you, Ramona. A lot going on there. And I do remember coming like 1 month before COVID shut everything down.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I do have to say our solar project is back on now, and Pete from Absolute Solar has been out and he's given us a proposal. And actually this Thursday, our endowment team is pretty much saying we have the money, that we can just pay for it outright. And so Thursday is our council meeting, and they have to be the ones that, it's kind of a pro forma, but they have to approve it. So get on their list. And we're excited about the new
direct pay rebate.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, excellent. Thank you, Ramona. If you can unshare, and then I'll ask Kathy from UU if she would like to continue.
Yes.
And if you have anything to share or not, that's either way.
I can share. Okay. So we're our church moved from East Lansing in 2016 to a much bigger property in South Lansing. It was an old school building, so we needed to do a lot of renovation. And in all the renovation we did, to do construction, we used LEED guidelines, and energy conservation was a big principle through all of this. And then we had lots of land to think about. And so we started doing things with the land. So one thing is a native plant garden. And I should say to begin with that I have not been involved in the two things I'm going to talk about. Was involved in some of the renovation, and also we've been, in 2019, we started looking at solar panels, and then COVID hit. And now we're looking at the possibility of solar panels again. and also other kinds of energy conservation measures, since our energy costs have almost doubled because the church building, which is very large, is getting used a lot more now. So we're looking into lots of possibilities. But the native plant garden was started with a grant from Michigan Audubon. And I just had a picture there, which doesn't look very good this time of year, and it was a very gray day. But we're working with Wild Ones Red Cedar chapter, who now meets at our church, and they recently had a native plant sale. And then there's been a lot of tree planting. Margot Smith was involved in organizing that. And we are building a natural playscape for both children and adults. And so far I've been building accessible walkways, but there are more plans for gardens and other kinds of activities in that. And then had a community garden for about the past 4 years that was started with support from the Greater Lansing Food Bank and a lot of help from Garden Project of Lansing. It has been very successful. So were volunteers that did a lot of work to make the soil usable for planting, and built a tall fence around to protect it from deer, of which we have a lot. And all of these plots are taken, some by congregants but many by refugees families, because we have a big refugee community near the church. And we also have English as a second language classes in the church. And so we work with those refugees taking classes and give them the opportunity for a plot. And they've used it for families and then expanded their families in the plots. And since we're on a bus line, we're open to a lot of people that may not be able to have other kinds of transportation or have cars. So we have water that was piped into the garden, a shed that I guess a year ago or so, we had to start putting a lock on it because things were getting stolen or damaged. But all of the gardeners have the combination to get in and use the tools. And we have areas for composting. And we now are serving 2 meals a week with this, partnering with the Southside Community Kitchen. So they come in and cook the meals. And they're open to anybody who wants to come and have a lunch those 2 days. And then the composting is generated from that. We have one of the plots and may have more space soon for a pollinator garden. And one interesting thing about having the refugee community from many different countries is they can get some of their own native plants to grow. The food bank has started plants that they can then use and plant in their plots and have food from their own countries, their own cultures. And so it's really been a very successful effort. And we're thinking about doing some expansions. We're not sure in what areas. I think I'll quit there. We have some other things going on, but that's enough for tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kathy. Just well worth, and just a comment, the Wild Ones is a national native plant organization, and Red Cedar chapter is the local branch of Wild Ones.
Yeah.
Find out more on Google. Dale Ramses from University Lutheran, would you like to be next? And would you like to share any?
Sure. I don't have a slide to share, but I'll just kind of quickly go through some of the things that we've been involved in. Judy Kendall has been our leader in the earth keeping team since its initiation, I believe, and has really provided us some strong leadership. Earlier years focused more on recycling, reducing plastic, Sunday forums that educate members of the congregation. As David mentioned, we'd also collaborated with the Islamic Center and Hazlitt Community Church on projects. We then looked with some suggestions from John Schleicher at solar possibilities, maybe a joint project with the Islamic Center that soon became very complex, and it was premature for us, frankly. What we hadn't done is looked at major ways to reduce energy. And really, it makes more sense to start with reducing energy rather than looking at solar. So we focused on LED lights in doing this. And that was really low-hanging fruit. We were able to do the work ourselves, so we didn't have to hire an electrician. And I think basically anyone could do this if they have a little interest in learning and are willing to walk up on the stepladder. I guess that might be one requirement. So let me just give you one example of a fixture with 4 fluorescent tubes in it. Taking those tubes out, taking the ballast out, and replacing it with 2 LED tubes that will give basically the same lumens as the 4 fluorescent tubes. That will cut your kilowatts from 160 down to 36. So you reduce by 3/4 the electricity used. If you're a member of the Consumers Energy Network, you can then apply for a grant, a rebate for that. And in this example, the rebate will pay for 75% of the cost of those tubes. So this very quickly becomes a no-brainer of doing this. Well, since we did it ourselves, we did it step by step over the course of 3 or, well, probably 4 years or more, because we had 1,200 fluorescent tubes. Replace those with 800 LED tubes, cut our energy use by 40%. We had doubters saying, well, it isn't going to make that much difference if you switch out, but a 40% reduction in kilowatts per year on a per year basis, that did make us a difference for us. Well, then we went back to solar, and we were very fortunate. Our neighbors at the Islamic Center gave us a generous gift towards solar. So that then stimulated us, and we generated funds to put in an 18 kilowatt solar array 2 years ago. But that then led us to consider paying forward the gift that the Islamic Center provided us. So we've now almost completed fundraising for a 38 kilowatt solar array for Redeemer Church in South Lansing, actually right very close to the Southside Coalition on Holmes Street. So we've paid forward that general gift from the Islamic Center.
And Dale, I wonder, anybody from Redeemer Church interested in joining our group?
They're a small group. I can certainly raise the issue with them, but I helped them get started on LED bulbs first. So they've done the LED bulbs, and now they will this coming spring be able to put the solar up, which will take care of the electric bill. But
well,
it's certainly raise that.
Yeah, that sounds really exciting. Thank you, Dale. Could I ask Randy from Faith to give a few words on what's going on at Faith Lutheran?
Actually, I'm going to defer to John Sliker, who's a much better orator than I am. So he sent you the slides, I think. So
yes, I have several pieces of information from John, and you can let me know which you'd like to share.
Okay, well, let me just say, I think partly the impetus for tonight was the synagogue interest in starting a team, correct? And so I wanted to say one of the things that I think for me and for the teams that I've kind of worked with and in our synod here in Michigan was pay attention to what your faith community tradition is. I think in terms of if I were Jewish, I would be looking at the Psalms, like Psalm 24, that earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. I'd be looking at the creation story in Genesis 1 and 2. I think those kind of things are really important to ground you and to say this is not just something kind of a faddish thing, but this is rooted in the deepest and oldest traditions of our faith. So I wanted to just start there, and then maybe you can put up the first slide that I sent you. That's about the I think it was in May 2016 when the Green Team at Faith first started. Do you have that one available, David?
Is it the Green Team mission statement?
It's before that. It's one that's I think it's stated. It's like a Faith Green Team meeting, May 2016. Do you have that
Yes,
one?
I have that. Just a moment. Let me
Okay.
pull that up. Okay.
So just to scan that really quickly, what you can see is that in the formation is that you wanted to find people that were drawn in a variety of different ways to this kind of work. And so this particular one was the folks at this initial gathering of folks from the congregation that could say, this is where I am, this is what I bring, this is why I care about this. And they reflected all kinds of different approaches and life experience and educational backgrounds to bring that. And that to me, if I were to start another team, then I would be looking for that kind of variety. Some people that perhaps the David Arnosti skills with, the technology stuff, and others that can do that, and people that think theologically, people that are wonderful communicators that can write articles and newsletters. So you want to have that mix, but everybody shares a kind of commitment to that this really matters and this is really important. I just did, you can take that one off, David. I read a thing from a Jewish document that says our tradition teaches that Adam and Eve were asked to till and to tend the Garden of Eden, Genesis chapter 2. We believe humans remain a partner in creation. Climate change threatens to irreparably alter the earth. Carbon dioxide concentrations are higher than they have been in more than 500,000 years. Since the advent of the Industrial Revolution, carbon dioxide levels have risen 30%. And then it just goes on and says the Jewish community supports aggressive climate change legislation to reduce these impacts of flooding, of soil erosion, of droughts, of sea level rise, etc. And so I think part of what I'm saying in the formation of a team is that you want to be in touch with your own story of your faith tradition and what your church beyond the local expression or congregation has already done. And so that you can kind of sync with this bigger story, this longer ancient story, even to this day, where I think nearly every faith tradition has engaged this whole issue and why this matters so much. So the next one I'd like you to put up then is the mission statement for Faith Lutheran.
Okay. Just a moment.
So one of the things that at the bottom of that minutes that I just showed you very briefly was that the importance of finding some language that will sustain you so that you just don't start and then you say, well, what do we do next? To think both about that ancient tradition, but also what's happening and why people care so deeply about this as a kind of fundamental faith endeavor, probably for the rest of our lives. So this was what the faith folks came up with, recognizing the importance of being good stewards of all God's creation, especially in this time of heightened worldwide environmental stress. The Faith Lutheran Green Team, through thoughtful prayer and pastoral guidance, and then has the kind of 2 points there of things that they would aim. And that kind of keeps them from getting too far off the track, keeps them a little bit more centered in what their endeavors will be from the beginning, even to this day. The next slide would be the 5 years of caring. if you can find that, of Caring for Creation. So this kind of shows you then over the period of from 2016 to very recently that, you know, their engagement with Interfaith Power and Light. They have the school congregation, which they actually were awarded that 1 year. Earth Day services on an annual basis. We had a thing at a theater in East Lansing before the flood. So that people had a variety of ways to be engaged and be attuned to the current crisis that we tried to address. Kind of things that they did was bat boxes, phone apps about nature, and then a variety of things that Dale and others have talked about in their church about recycling, lighting. They've pretty much done the whole church, including the worship space is now LED. A pollinator garden, the parish house, which used to be a parsonage for the pastor, now houses refugee youth, and to kind of make that a sustainable project. Carbon Fast, working not only just with the congregation, but with the township and a variety of events. The latest one that's not on there is the decision to go ahead and do solar. And they're doing it by through another organization that provides the investors. And they've voted to, after kind of careful scrutiny, and a lawyer who happens to be the president of the congregation, have signed a contract now for that work to be done, which would have cost the congregation probably $70,000, $80,000 or more $1,000. But they can do it at no cost and not reap the full benefit financially, but their bills will be about 10% lower than they would otherwise. And then in 7 years, with depreciation, we'll find it possible at a much more affordable price to buy it from these investors. So that's another way to get into this when you don't have the necessary monies to go ahead on your own to do that. I wanted one more slide really quickly, and I think I'm probably running out of time, but under the Interfaith Power and Light, under the icon of resources, there's a subcategory called spiritual resources. If you could bring that one up, David.
Yes, I have that, but I think that one was, some of the boxes were missing. Was this the one that we're supposed to be looking at?
It was it's the one that talked about stewards of hope.
Okay, just a second.
Okay.
Let's see. Statement, green team, 5 years. Team update. Is it just text?
No, it's got some pictures, but let me just talk about it. Okay. So yeah. I think that I think the congregation in Charlotte, you talked about that, Ramona. There's under the spiritual resources on their website is called Stewards of Hope. And that offers a way that how important it is to have your spiritual leader on board. I mean, really on board, not just tacitly involved, but really caring deeply about this, that over time then can provide that kind of, as well as the lay leadership of the community, of the congregation. It's so important to have a mission statement, to have this wide variety of folks with different skill sets that are committed to this cause together, because you bring all that wonderful diversity into the room. And so it's kind of and it talks about the low-hanging fruit thing that you start, like Dale said, not with the big projects like solar, but you start with lights, for example. Another congregation I'm working with as a coach has a very simple mission statement. It's called Living Faithfully with Less. So I just found that really intriguing, but it's incredibly simple. And so the last point I want to make is that I've been privileged to work as a coach for congregations and would offer that to the folks are in the Jewish community, if that would be helpful. What a coach does, especially in the early months, maybe the first couple of years, then meets with the team leader, the green team leader, either in person, but more lately, probably by Zoom or just a phone call on a pretty regular basis. And it provides kind of an accountability. I would ask, what do you celebrate? Where is it really challenging? Where is it a chance that, you feel like this could fall apart? In other words, I provide that sort of outside person that can encourage and challenge. And what that has, I think, done for the teams, it doesn't mean that every team needs one, but a coach can provide that sort of outside, well, we need to let John know what we're up to, and a little bit of a motivation. And at least from my experience, what seems to have been helpful. And part of it is just patience, because not everything works as quickly as some of us would like. So I don't know how I'm doing on my 5 minutes. I think I'm up here, but that's kind of our story. I'm really excited to be part of Faith, very progressive in a lot of ways, sort of like the UCC congregations, I think, tend to be. But they've also embraced environmental justice as such a key and pivotal part of their mission.
John, that was very well said. Randy, I totally, you're right. Sometimes it's the best thing to do is to listen. We definitely profited from that steady mentorship in the initial phases of our green team activities. Jeff Arbor, would you like to tell us a little bit about Presbyterian Church of Okemos and a project I know that you have been involved in?
Yep, let me get a slide up here. I think back, there were about 3 of us at the church. It'll be 5 years come this January that I remember sitting in on a presentation by the fellow from Michigan State that's responsible for the solar panels in the 5 parking lots, John Lefevre, or if that's how to pronounce it. So this will be 5 years and 5 minutes, I guess. But the 3 of us were researching solar for meetings, presentations, Leroy Harvey and all, but we didn't really have any organization to it. And what's really critical was that and our interim pastor, right in the peak of the hitting of COVID, was very supportive of the idea. And what happened was there were pockets of interest, like you and Todd, who's on this call, and other areas. And I was chairing administration at the time. We were talking about the solar stuff with her a little. And that's when it kind of gelled, and she was extremely supportive of forming the Green Team. So we did that in March of 2020. And I just will mention as a footnote, our new pastor has been there exactly 1 year now, and she is extremely supportive of everything we're doing, which is very, very helpful. When we formed the Green Team, I would say it sounds like kind of the typical configuration of subcommittees we formed. Spoke to things like recycling, native plants, composting, and solar energy. And we formed a solar energy subcommittee of about 6 people, and Ewan and Kent Workman, who is on this call, are part of that. And so that's when we really went to work in 2020. And in terms of research and finding our way, first of all, I guess one important point was I went to session and asked for their support in our investigation of these options, and if they were supportive of that, so we weren't wasting our time. And I was very happy to get total support, and in fact, even stronger than I had even hoped for. So to get going, I will thank the couple people on this call, Thassan at the Islamic Center we visited, and then David at Hazlitt Community hosted us and helped us get our feet on the ground and get a good understanding of what they had done and so forth. And in conjunction with that, Ewan and I were on some calls with Michigan IPL And that was extremely helpful. They had one Zoom meeting with, I forget their name, and even the church in Detroit, who had sponsored the solar project by forming an LLC. And that was something we wanted to learn about because we didn't really have the funding available to do this. And the Michigan IPL was very helpful, not only in that way, but they had all kinds of documents and been put together on how to do that and so forth with the power purchase agreement. And they connected us then with like the Genesis Church down in Ann Arbor, which is 3 congregations under one roof. And that lead person, Maury Rosenthal, was extremely helpful there. And then all along we were working, and I say consulting, with 2 vendors because we were really using them as consultants, Absolute Solar here in the Lansing area. And then it was through the IPL folks that I came upon Homeland Solar and saw how much they had done with churches in Southeast Michigan, and I found out a lot of other very positive things about them. So at that point, then we were looking at an option of installing the panels on our roof, but the roof of our church is multi-angled, none facing south. And what we found out was, we were surprised to find out that the roof that would be the most desirable to use actually would need to be upgraded in 5 years, which was a surprise and kind of a disappointment. But that helped push us towards the in-ground, which we were interested in anyway. And we now have the situation where the panels that are installed are, the orientation is perfect, 180 degrees to the south. So in a lot of ways, we're better off. Plus, I noticed today there was some snow on them, and now we can handle that easily. And communication was extremely important to us as we went. We had 2 town hall meetings. The first one focused on just the idea of solar and trying to get the the support from the congregation. And the second one was on the financial approach with the LLC and to get their support and their involvement. And I should mention that we had, following church, we had a Zoom call with David Arnosti, who was extremely helpful. We had a real good turnout and right at the church through Zoom. And David screened out a lot of questions that I wouldn't have been able to answer 2 weeks later at my town hall. So it worked out great. And then we also had frequent updates through our monthly newsletter and sometimes a minute for mission and so forth. So by May of last year, we had decided to look at or wait a minute, I'm sorry, this is this year, 2022. We had made a decision to go with a 40 kilowatt, 100 panel in-ground system in 2 arrays. And it turns out that our usage is going down. When we were configuring this, the numbers told us it offset 86%, but consumers just told me a week ago that it's offsetting 97% of our usage based on last year's numbers. And one thing that we like about it is the panels being out on the north part of our property make a strong visible statement, we believe, about our commitment to caring for creation that the world sees as they drive by on Okemos Road. And in regard to the financing, we had planned to go along the path of the LLC and power purchase agreement. But then with the passage of the Inflation Reduction Act, all of a sudden we found ourselves in September scrambling and considering our direction, and then just opted to go for a direct contract between the church and Homeland Solar. And the way we're doing this is that we do have a large bequest from a member who we lost a few years back. So we've decided what we could do is pay for the system with that bequest, but recover that money and pay that back in three ways. One will be from a solar campaign that we'll conduct in the first quarter of next year, where we have a goal of collecting $22,000. And a bigger part will come from the 36% direct pay available to nonprofits. And then the rest will come from recovering the cost savings from the panels over, I'm saying 6 or 7 years, but not to get off on a tangent, but there's a bill in the House that's been stalled in a committee, bill number 4236, that I think will come to life in our new political configuration. And that bill would eliminate the cap on solar. And it also would restore net metering for configurations under 20 kilowatt and partial net metering for those above that. So I am optimistic something may come of that. So our plan then has become operational in January 2023. And that's what our property looks like. Well, not exactly today, but without the snow, with the snow now, but so.
Excellent, Jeff. That's very comprehensive and exciting to see how you've navigated every twist and turn of the changing legislative landscape. Hopefully it'll just make it easier and easier as people move ahead on this. But the pre-planning, I think, was important. If you had waited until August when the bill passed, you still would have had a lot of work to do to be where you are right now.
Yeah.
If I could ask Bill Nash from People's Church, we would love to hear what you guys are thinking. And I know Mark has shared some of your recent meetings.
Yeah, thank you. Good to be with you all. The Green Team at People's Church is called the Earth Stewardship Committee, and we were formed back in 2008. I have been with the team since that time, either as a chair or co-chair. This year I'm co-chair with Susan Kilmer from our church. We are situated structurally within our ministry called Buildings and Ground. And if you're familiar with People's Church, probably most of you are, it's a 115-year-old building, and there's a lot to do to keep it up. And we've got a lot of building going on around us now. We're almost like in a valley, and there's these big mountains that are looming all around us, and more to come by the sounds of things. So we got some challenges in that regard. You're talking about solar, something we'd like to do, but I'm not sure we could get enough sunlight anymore to make it work. That to be the opinion, I guess, of some engineers to determine that. So we have no general funding. We get our money from where we're situated across from campus. There's 7 home football games every year. And some of the committees, ministries, we divide up that money. So we work the detail, if you will, on a Saturday. And that brings in a pretty good chunk of change. So that's our money for our restricted account. So nothing comes out of the general, but we fundraise through working the parking.
So our chapter should be praying for Mel Tucker, in other words.
Yeah.
It'll certainly support your green team.
Keep those people rolling into the campus, yeah.
That's an interesting model, because I think when we hear from Tahsin Sardar, they had something similar. But go ahead, Bill.
Okay. Now, the history we were formed, like I said, in 2008. We took a micro approach, I guess, initially, where we did some of the traditional things that you're talking about, some of your folks here tonight, about greening of the church, of the building, energy efficiency through proper updated lighting, water saving devices, new windows, doors, that kind of thing to lower our energy costs and usage. This this was the first year or so we made a lot of improvements in that regard in terms of helping with our costs. And then we kind of reached out to the congregation in the next step where we were doing some educational things for them. Excuse me. And we had them get involved in a very aggressive recycling program where we even, this was back before you had the widespread curbside pickup that you got today. So we had certain Sundays they brought in different kinds of materials, plastics one week, glass the next, and we even got into recycling styrofoam and taking that out, getting that out to Dart Corporation and Mason for recycling. So we were one of the few collection spots in the area. Now that's a little more widespread. So then we did some educational activities. We had somebody mention about an Earth Day event every year. We do that. We bring in, we have after our service, we try to have a green sermon from the pastor. Then we have, we set up in our friendship hall. We've brought people in, content experts, people from energy companies, consumers, Board of Water and Light, talk about energy saving devices, programs that they're generating to help with conservation efforts. So that's a yearly event right around Earth Day. Now, after getting our own house in order, so to speak, we started to do more what I would call community service activities, such as river cleanups, participating in river cleanups. We did 3 years of Adopt a Highway. We had a section of highway on Interstate 69 that we cleaned for 3 years. And so that was the kind of thing we did in terms of serving the community, reaching out. Now, just before the pandemic hit, we started focusing, now that we had done these other things and felt fairly comfortable and we're making progress in educating the congregation and doing some community service things, we said, we've got to get involved with other houses of worship. And that's what we were cranking up to just before the pandemic hit. So, of course, that set us all back. And since then, since things have lessened now in that regard, that monster facing us, we are now reaching out through, the capital area chapter of Michigan Interfaith Power and Light, and trying to get involved so we can get involved more in advocacy and activism, learning more from you folks, sharing ideas. And just about the last 4 months, David, we've gotten, as you know, started to get involved. And just briefly, a couple months ago, I think Mark Lyon was with us tonight. And he was with you folks a little longer than I have been in terms of these meetings. We're thankful to have him on board. He's a member of our committee now. He just joined our church last Sunday. So we're real happy with having Mark on board. He's quite a resource. So I think it's onward and upward from here. We're looking forward to working with this group and learning more about what you're doing. I'm really intrigued, like I said, with all the things you're doing with solar power arrangements. And we've got to talk to our buildings and grounds people. But like I said, we've got some real structural issues in terms of what's going on around us in our older building. And I'm not sure we're ever going to see panels on the roof. What area we have outside the church, parking is becoming an issue. So I'm not sure we could even put panels out there. It may be turning into parking spaces so we can continue to serve our congregation. So that's where we have. That's kind of the evolution. We started micro. We're moving towards macro with the help of you folks.
Thank you so much, Bill. And yes, Mark is going to be a great addition to your group. Dan Nowicki, speaking of solar, I know that your group has also been involved at a community solar level. If you want to tell us a little bit about that and share if you have anything.
Yes, so we've been through green teams forming for our congregation on the south side of Lansing, I think back in 2015, went through Stewards of Hope and addressed many of the things that have already been shared. But one option that is not currently available, I think I'm sharing my screen here, you can see MI Community Solar. So this, in our green team's discernment about solar, we were exploring the things that have been discussed, power purchase agreements, installing ourselves. And in that time, actually, this program became available through the Board of Water and Light, where they were installing a solar array on Birchfield Road on an old dump site, I believe. And they made it available to all BWL customers, both residents and commercial, to lease panels in this project. Essentially, they crowdfunded the building of the whole array, and then the people who purchased those leases now are getting credits on their electric bill every month based on the production. So this is the website. You can't actually apply right now. There's no other solar park, but it's still an active site where you can get all the information, explains how it all works. But it is a solution for sites that aren't positioned in a spot where they have too much shading, or they don't have a roof that would accommodate panels, or don't have enough space. We have one facility like that. Our other facility could have had panels, but it just wasn't a good fit financially at the time. And this allowed us to buy into as many panels as we wanted to, up to our capacity. It also allowed us to support the project so that homeowners could buy into this if they were in a spot where they couldn't put on rooftop panels. And it meant we didn't have to buy the inverters and all the other packages that go with that, or have any worry about liability, maintenance, anything on site. So it was kind of a perfect win-win for us at the time. We were able to do this for 2 of our Community of Christ sites, and I know I was able to do it personally as well at the time. I remember the Board of Water and Light saying then that they were open to looking at doing this again, I think at a site on the south side of Lansing by the water treatment plant. So maybe if there's enough interest, and this group could help drive that with facilities and people who want to buy into solar because they can't install it on their homes, there'd be interest. Essentially it's pre-funded once they get the lease commitments, so they can work with the developer to do that, and then it's just through their billing system. So it was really a neat option. There's a lot on this page if you want to look into all the frequently asked questions about how much does it cost. Their estimates for the return was that basically you'd get your payback in about year 14 out of the 25-year lease. And again, this was 3 or 4 years ago, so I don't think it's been updated on actual numbers, but that was sort of the idea. I think all of the people who are in the project are listed here, so you could look at that if you had any questions. But I think it would take a group effort to get to the BWL and say, let's do this again, so people can buy into it.
Fantastic. I think that one of the aspects of community solar, some of them are that the energy generated be available in part to low-income families, and that's part of the climate justice aspects of some of these projects. Tassin Sardar has joined us, and I wonder, Tassin, would you like to share your own slides?
Sure, I can do that. Good
Yeah,
evening,
go ahead.
everyone.
From Islamic Center of East Lansing.
Can you see my slide now?
Yes.
All right. So I'm going to present both more so as a partnership between the Islamic Center of East Lansing and the University Lutheran Church. And I should give the credit right off the bat to the Hazlet Community Church for motivating us to work as partners. Even though we were right next door to each other, our green teams had not collaborated together. David Arnasti and his green team at the Hazlet Community Church, they sparked our interest in this to work together, and we started collaborating and started exploring how we can do a joint project together. And over time, after evaluating a number of options, how we could do a solar project together, it became a little cost prohibitive to do something between our property lines and then share the power. A ground install, as you may know, is a little more expensive, I think, compared to the rooftop install. And even otherwise, from a placement standpoint, it became a little challenging. So we ended up I should say we ended up at the Islamic Center doing our own rooftop installation. And since we had partnered together, we wanted to make sure that the University Lutheran Church also had a little project of their own. And even though they had their interest and a direction to adopt their own solar project, they also had organ failure at the church, and that was a costly replacement for them. And this one took a back seat as a result. So as you may know, we also share a lot of commonalities with the church in terms of, more so in terms of the church letting us use their parking space. And as a way of appreciation for that, and also as a way of long-term relationship that we've enjoyed with the church, we offered a challenge gift to the church so that they could initiate their own project and raise funds so that they could do their own installation. So eventually the University Lutheran Church also ended up having their own project, and both our facilities now have solar on our rooftops. What you see here on the top left corner is the church. It is, you don't see the panels right now there. And the bottom picture is the Islamic Center. And the right side, what you see is the panels on the Islamic Center's rooftop. And then we, in order to promote our message of partnership and how we as houses of worship can come together and jointly collaborate and take care of our environment and work on renewable projects, renewable energy projects, we decided to have a sort of a dedication event. And we invited Representative Alyssa Slotkin to come and dedicate our projects. So here's a little clip that I'll play, and that explains more in detail. This was on the church rooftop, and this is the Islamic Center's rooftop. This was the first phase, and we have added another set of panels now. We installed a 10.24 kilowatt system, and we started off by looking at it as a starter module with the hope of growing it over time.
Imam Sohail and the Islamic Center gifted us with a $25,000 challenge gift toward a solar array, and we were able to raise the other $25,000 that we needed.
We thought we'll throw you a challenge saying that take this $25,000, this is a gift from us. However, we would like to challenge your congregation to match the donation so that you could have a full-fledged solar installation on your roof.
Our neighbors, the Islamic Center, they had used Absolute Environmental Solutions, so we contacted them. There's, as I recall, about 60 panels. That gives us just a tad under 20 kilowatts. We are now using 1/3 as much fossil fuels to generate electricity as we did 6-7 years ago.
We want to be part of a movement that seeks to reduce the carbon footprint, and we want to seek renewable energy sources and promote sustainable development goals. And it is our firm belief that we now need to pay it forward. We were inspired by others, and we want to inspire others as well.
These two communities have chosen a path not of separation, respectful distance, and independence, but of interdependence, collaboration, and friendship.
The greatest love letter that you can send to your community and your country is your time and your energy. And you have given that in order to make this happen.
There are verses in the Quran where we are talked about as being the stewards of the earth. With responsibility also comes accountability. We worship God and do charitable work and help our local communities and beyond. We are serving humanity at large.
I just pray and hope that this will be a model relationship for the rest of the country to follow. And it shows the value of what interfaith can do. You know, it's not just about faith in our hearts, but actions that we do together to better our environment, to better this planet, to promote peace and justice around us, And I pray that we'll be able to transfer this relationship to the coming generations for all to benefit from. So God bless you all. Thank you.
3, 2, 1.
Awesome. Thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you.
That really
yeah,
does.
Last bit. So as a result of this partnership, the Michigan Interfaith Power and Light recommended us to their national Power and Light chapter to award us as a cool congregation across the country. So this came with a $1,000 recognition apart from this certificate. This was in 2021. So this is something we encourage houses of worship to apply for. There's one coming up for this year, 2022. And that evaluation will probably be done in the month of December, January. I'm not sure if the deadline is done for it, for the submissions, but we encourage you to do it. Not only does more than the $1,000, it's the word that gets out. Your congregation gets to know that you care for the environment and you're being recognized for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Justine. Really, really stirring example of yours and University of Lutheran's work together. We have limited minutes, but a few more people who volunteered to present. I would like to know if Bill Murphy would like to say a few words about what's going on at All Saints.
Certainly. Thank you, David. I'll be very quick. Just mainly what I'd like to do is offer some ideas for KI Synagogue and other potential new members or folks that are just getting into this about procedural steps that worked for us on how to get a green team underway and doing things. But very quickly, as far as our status, we did complete a complete LED light conversion in our building this summer. That is now completely finished. We have committed to a solar energy array. It'll be a roof-mounted one that we will start the fundraising in January and the grant writing and so on. It is our hope, our intent to have it installed next fall. And we are also starting, I've met with a couple experts, we are going to start probably a 3-year, what I'm calling conservation, environmentally friendly plant project on our grounds to make it more pollinator friendly, native plants and less maintenance and so on. And that will begin this spring and be a 3-year project. But what I'd like to talk about mostly is a couple minutes on ideas about how to put in place an effective green team. And this is from our experience at All Saints. And the first one, the first two that I found, I've been kind of leading this, is that it's very critical to get management approval right up front, get sanctioned, make it known that what you want to do isn't just your little group off on by yourself. It is your house of worship in its entirety. It's sanctioned from the top on down. The other thing I'd recommend is making it part of a larger, well-established, more traditional entity within your house of worship. For us, that might be social justice, outreach, buildings, whatever. For us, it was the Building and Grounds Committee. And that's because in our particular setup, anything that in any way affects the use of or in any manner affects the building or the grounds, the Building and Grounds Committee is involved. And obviously, if you're going to do any kind of green project, it will affect the building or the grounds in some manner. So get those folks involved, because oftentimes they have some technical expertise. They generally have a great deal of institutional memory, and they know the property extremely well as to what can and can't be done, what should and shouldn't be done, and so on. And also, if you're part of that larger group, it makes getting a budget much easier, has been my finding. You're no longer kind of the new kid on the block. You are recognized, and getting money for what you want to do within this larger group is easier, I have found. One of the things that any new group involved in this needs to remember is that not everyone is going to be on board. There will be those that don't want a solar array up on the roof. They're convinced that it's going to be a very expensive mistake, or they don't want their manicured gardens displaced by weeds or whatever native plants you have in mind. And to address that issue, obviously education and all of that, but also by not reinventing the wheel, by making use of MIPL and all of these folks right here, you gather information. For instance, when I first proposed a roof-mounted solar array, there were several very strong voices against it. So I personally met with and talked to 8 or 10 churches, mosques, synagogues between here and Grand Rapids, literally, and got firsthand information from folks like Dale Ramses and Basin and David and many others, so that I could come back and say, I have all of this good information from people who have done it. And it's not just Absolute Solar or someone else that has a vested interest saying this. It's all of these other folks who have done it 2, 3, 4 years ago. And they can provide information that, no, it doesn't destroy your roof. No, it's not, it doesn't turn sour, or the promises are not empty when the solar installer promises X number of savings, you get it. That's what the result is. So by not going in on your own, by making it a team effort with people that have done it, you're not only not inventing the wheel by yourself, you also can gather a great deal of very beneficial information that can convince the powers that be and your fellow members in your house of worship that this really is a good idea, it's the right thing to do, and it can be done in a very effective, efficient, cost-saving manner without anything blowing up.
Bill, you're speaking like a veteran of foreign wars, coming back with real stories of working with real groups of people. Thank you so much. And good luck with your project as you carry forward.
Thank you.
Carol, you don't have your camera on. We had emailed before this. I didn't know if you wanted to say anything tonight about First Pres as we wind up. I think Carol's still muted. Kehillat Israel, you have asked, we have spoken. Do you have some questions right at the end? Because I think that this is going to be a continuing conversation. We've pretty much run to the end of our 90-minute allotted segment, but certainly it'll continue. But David Weiner, I wonder if you or Stan, I think was our other attendee, if you have any questions. You guys are both muted, I think, right now.
Well, first, I want to thank you, David, for your leadership in continuing to develop our organization and facilitating this evening. It was very inspiring to hear all the different work that different congregations are doing, the great variety of things, and also some of the similarities of what people are doing. So I hope we're not the only beneficiaries of this conversation this evening. I'm very grateful to you for doing this. We have a lot of history in our organization for in terms of working with the environment, both in terms of our collective as well as individual people within the congregation. So we're at a transition point of thinking about where we are right now and where we want to go. I especially appreciate John Schleicher's comments. We did start 2 years ago with a seminar done by Rabbi Dobbs from Bethesda, talking about our own tradition, a 4-part seminar. So I think that we're pretty well grounded in what we need to do, but the demands are so great. The world is so needy. The society is so needy that we want to be very intentional about what decisions we make, where we put our energy, and how we can work, not just ourselves, but with others to make the world a better place. So I could say more, but I know we're out of time, and I just want to express my deep appreciation to all of you for this evening. And I'm glad that it's recorded. We will share it. There are a number of people who wanted to attend from our, we call it Tikkun Olam committee. It's a social justice committee. Tikkun Olam means repair the world. The concept of Tikkun Olam is that God created the world, but it's not perfect. It's up to us to continue to make it better. So we will share that with that group. We will share this with that group and continue our searching for how we can be effective. So thank you again so much to everyone and to David for facilitating this.
David Weiner, thank you very much. Our next official Tuesday meeting is going to be on January 17th. We will have communications in between as our work with Ingham County Land Bank goes ahead. We're working on a memo of understanding for that. There's a board meeting for Interfaith Power and Light that will be helping decide how we move ahead on that. So Mark Lyon and I will definitely be in contact with many of you. I will work with Leah Wisty to put this recording up on the Michigan Interfaith Power and Light YouTube website, and then we'll share the link so that those people who couldn't be with us or wanted to catch some of those details again or share it with others can do that. And I thank everybody for participating tonight. I think hand of applause all around, and look forward to seeing many of you very soon.
Thank you, David.
Thank you.